p.m. Due to the increasing concern surrounding the coronavirus pandemic, this meeting will remain closed to the public. There are no scheduled public hearings, and there will be no public comment period. The meeting is being live streamed on Channel 9. Live video and audio of the meeting will be aired on Comcast Channel 9. A recording of the meeting will also be posted on the West Bridgewater YouTube channel. Please join me in a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first on the meeting is a follow-up from town meeting, and I think we should start with congratulating Meredith and wishing her the very best.
Congratulations, Mary. Welcome.
Thank you guys very much. I'm excited.
Does anyone else have anything to add and follow up to town meeting?
No, I thought it was a pretty smooth meeting, actually.
Yeah, I thought it went very well.
Yeah,
Annie, I think everyone did a great job in setting up the gym, and a great job videotaping it and streaming it. I thought everything went really well.
yeah, I was just going to add, say thank you to Lorna and Linda and everybody else at the staff in the school, because like you said, there was a lot more logistics involved. And the other is, just as a cleanup business, the Board of Selectmen had approved a 1/12 budget at the previous meeting.
Mm-hmm.
The Department of Revenue had recommended that we do a 1/12 budget in case town meeting didn't happen for whatever reason. Obviously, town meeting happened, so that 1/12 budget has now been negated with the Department of Revenue and replaced with the budget that was approved at town meeting.
Great. Well, thank you, David and Lorna. Thank you for everything you did. Did a great job. Okay, moving on. Review Board of Selectmen rules and assign. So the first is the Surges signatory, which is when our projects go out to bid, what we need for services. It's sort of, for lack of a better word, a conglomerate is put together. Various towns are involved, so we're not on our own picking any services. They do go through a bidding process. In the past, the chairman has been the signatory, so if there's no objection, if someone wants to make a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion to appoint Denise as the Surges signatory.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, for parking clerk, it's typically the clerk that is the parking clerk. I was the clerk, I think, for 2 years maybe, and I've never had a ticket, so it's not a demanding job. So Mary, if that might be something you want to do, I'd like to make a motion for Mary to be the parking clerk.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Road opening permit, application signatory, this usually is the vice chair position. So I would think, Anthony, that might be yours.
Sounds good.
If they want to make a motion, Mary?
Sure. Make a motion for Anthony to be the road opening permit guy.
Yeah. I'll call for a second. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I don't know if we're ready for this, but we're moving right along to the interviews for the full-time officers. Are they on standby?
I believe they are.
Okay. So we'll need to, on our iPads, move to Google Meets. Okay. I think we're all muted right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. I see Vic. I don't know. Vic, can you hear me? Hi, Vic.
I can hear you.
Aren't
I'm
you?
on mute.
Okay. We're going to have some feedback, so I don't know how this will go.
Yeah.
Are you muted, Anthony?
I am.
Meredith, is yours muted?
I think it's because the volume's coming through on all of them.
Okay. Well, we'll manage through this. Okay, so We are ready to start. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about the applicants, Beth?
Oh, we're ready to start with these interviews?
Sure are.
No, I think we'll just let them start like we normally do, and you got my recommendation there already. I put it on paper, so just let me know. I have both the candidates right here. We can start it up anytime you want.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay, any specific order?
How about Robert Carrigan first?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Robert. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How about if we start with you telling us a little bit about yourself, and then Anthony, Mary, and I might have a question or two?
Okay. I've grown up in West Bridgewater my whole entire life. I work in West Bridgewater as of now, obviously, a dispatch, and I'm a special here. I like to landscape in town as well, so I know a lot of the community members and whatnot. Honestly, I like to play a lot of sports, so I just try to go to the track and work on the gym all the time. Been at the station gym a lot because you can't go to the gym, obviously. But besides that, I like the community, and hopefully I can make a dent and do something good.
Anthony, do you have any questions?
I'm sure I'll go. Why don't you? Sorry. Oops. So you've been a PI for a while, or at least a few months, I believe. Can you tell us something or multiple things that are different than what you originally anticipated?
In regards to like duties you have to do as a specialist?
Anything, duties, or just anything you thought would be different than it is?
Well, what's different? I'll just say what's like different from like dispatching to being a specialist. It's completely different. When you're dispatching, you're on the phone, you're talking to everybody, you don't really get out into the community besides like at the station and whatnot. And then the moment you get on the road, you actually get to interact and act yourself well and try to be a good person on the road and whatnot. And it is different than there and whatnot, you know.
Yeah. So, what would you say the most stressful or the most intense call that you've had as a dispatcher, or if you've reported to any calls, and how did you handle that?
As a special, I haven't really reported any calls because like traffic detail and whatnot, but even a handful of like stressful calls when I was with the dispatching, and I don't really have any in my head, but when I try to get there with stressful calls and whatnot, I always try to stay calm and make sure the person on the phone is just on the phone.
Yep. All right, thank you. And could you just tell us a little bit more about your education?
Education. I graduated from Westwater High School, and then I went over to Massachusetts, and I was a transfer student. So then I went up after there, I went to Bridgewater State, and got my bachelor's in business.
All right, thank you, Robert. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Mary, do you have any questions?
Yes, Robert, I have one question for you. What part of this new role are you looking forward to the most?
Honestly, just actually just be with everybody, just be happy person, try to help people as much as possible.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, Robert, just one question. I was looking over your formal education, and my question is, what part or what did you learn during your education that you will find the most helpful in doing the job, and why?
Honestly, like going back to Bridgewater State, I had a lot of lectures and whatnot about policing that was good, bad, and I take a lot of the bad into consideration, and I try to just go off that and be better and the community. Once I go full time, I can get through the academy and whatnot. Just try to actually like think about those things and just try not to do anything like that, and just actually try to like shape myself to be a better person.
Good answer. Did very well. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I do not.
Okay, well, we appreciate your time, and
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Is Christopher Hugh available now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good, yourself? Good, yourself?
Fine, thanks. Why don't we let you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, and then we might ask a few questions?
Sure. So I grew up in Whitman. I was there, and then I heard about an opportunity over here in West Bridgewater. I then moved to West Bridgewater to be on civil service list, and I became a dispatcher here. I graduated the Carryover Academy and became a specialist as well, just about 6 months into being a dispatcher here. I graduated from Carryover College in 2017 and from Whitman High School in 2014.
Okay, thank you. Anthony, do you have any questions?
Yes. Hi, Christopher. Could you tell me, coming into West Bridgewater, or if you, I believe you said you worked in Whitman as well, what's different than you had originally anticipated?
Right, so I was before Hanson, working in West Bridgewater. Over at Hanson, we did all the fire calls. So when I came here, shocked that they could do that over here in the police matters, which makes the job a little bit stressful because I was used to multitasking both sides of the police and fire.
Okay, thank you. And as either a dispatcher or, I'm not sure if you respond to many calls as a special, but what is the most stressful event that you have encountered, and how did you handle it?
So this was my first detail special. I had remotely accompanied the country in town. We had a tree down and hit one of the workers at that point, it was a regular 88 as well as calling the EMS as well as the other stuff.
Okay, great. Thank you, Christopher. Good to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay, Meredith, do you have some questions for Christopher?
Say, hi, Christopher, how are you?
Good, yourself?
Good, thanks. What part of the job are you not looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to about certain situations where we have to deal with that family as well as the person to deal with. Just being handling. I mean, obviously, part of the job is to be able to cope with people in situations that definitely be the most difficult part of it.
I would say so. What part are you looking forward to?
Being around the community, being able to interact with people in a personal matter, other than right now we're on the desk and we're on the phone and we send other units.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I'm unmuted. I'm having a little, there. Can you hear me okay? Chris?
You're in.
Okay.
Yes.
It's working out. Okay. Just have one question for you. I looked over your resume, and it seems wherever you worked, you had longevity there. How do you see your future in West Bridgewater? Do you see yourself staying here 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, so my career is making a full-time town academy, and we can stay here for as long as we can.
Okay. What do you find attractive about being a police officer in West Bridgewater?
When I first came here, in West Bridgewater, police-oriented, everyone I've talked to has always been very nice, welcoming, and it's something that I've always looked forward to.
Okay. Appreciate your answers. Very good answers as well. If the chief is available, I believe we're ready to move forward with a few words from the chief and then go on to an appointment.
Stephanie?
I think we're ready to move forward to an appointment. They both seem very well qualified. Great choices.
Well, the good thing that we had with these two individuals is we started that program, you know, now 4 years ago, maybe a little longer. We hired these two individuals who've been here for a long time. So you got to actually see them. We have to see their personality. You got to see their work ethic. You know, and they moved on to be specialists. We moved them slowly into these roles to see how they're going to react and thrive in these roles. So it was really nice to be able to go through these steps to make sure that we have two quality individuals moving forward. So we're very lucky to have these two individuals. I think they've done very well. I think they are smart, they have integrity, they're very honest individuals and very community-oriented individuals. So I think this is a win-win for us. And had a little bit of time to actually watch our growth. So as I put down my recommendation, I recommend both highly. I think they will be a great addition to the West Bridgewater Police Department, and that will be my recommendation to the nation.
Thank you. So I think at this point, David, we'd be looking for a motion
That's
to
correct.
appoint.
Yep, I'll make a motion to appoint Robert Carrigan and Christopher Hugh.
I'll second
Is there
that.
a second? Okay. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. They've been appointed.
You're on mute, Denise.
I'm on mute. Okay.
I'm not hearing much.
I'm sorry. Vic, we just had a unanimous vote to appoint both Robert Carrigan and Christopher Hugh to full-time police officers.
Very good. They both smile.
Well, we hope to get to meet them in person soon and congratulate them formally. Apologize.
They will be attending the police academy starting August 3rd, and be sometime out in probably February, and then we can hopefully we can at that point have a beginning sometime in the selectmen room to welcome them aboard.
Well, we wish them the very best. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
So Vic, you're going to stay with us. We're moving on to the police department state accreditation. And I think I'd like to ask Anthony, if you don't mind, you know a lot about the work that went into this, so could you just give us a few words?
Sure. So I don't know that I know a lot, but
Well, you spoke
So-
better about it.
yeah. So I know last year the police department received their certification. I attended that ceremony with the police chief and Lieutenant Nixon and David. So I know that there's been hundreds of policies and procedures written. It's moved the department forward, and especially with everything that's going on in the world today, it's perfect timing that all this is coming together. There's now procedures for, I mean, maybe not every incident, but nearly every thinkable incident, and a policy to follow so that there's a guide made available for officers to follow. And I think it would make sense for Vic to talk more about the work that went into it. I know that him and Lieutenant Nixon spent countless hours on it.
Yeah. I mean, just to give accreditation a little bit, it's obviously a process for police and the Commonwealth. It's also not just for local, it's for campus, it's for housing agencies, state, all of them will be involved in accredited. We start out first. And just to reiterate, there's only 93 accredited police departments in Massachusetts. Include, like I said, including colleges, housing. There's only 93 of us. So to be one of those 93 is pretty special. Because it's a lot of work. It starts off with 2 days. Start off first with certification. And in certification, I forget the exact numbers. I was trying to get. It's about 159 standards. And the standards are like Anthony stated. it has to do with policies and procedural things. And once the certification, once you reach that certification, with the standards, there's some minor renovations. We have the police department. They come in and do a self-assessment, 2-day self-assessment that was conducted here last year, probably sometime in February or March. Then we went to the meeting which we attended, David and I and Nixon, where they voted on us to be certified. Then at that point, we went to full accreditation to try to get that done. Lieutenant Nixon, I can't say anything more. He did a majority of the work. I can't take much credit for that. And got us accredited within a year. So we went from nothing to certification within 2 years to fully accredited 3 years. Just to give a little perspective on that, there are still people in the self-assessment, meaning they haven't even gotten certification yet, that have been there 7, 8 years. So to do this in 3 years, we are, is definite kudos to Lieutenant Nixon and the entire department. This takes a whole team to do this because of the fact that the unions can cause issues with policies and slow the process down. So, like I said, and then they say, why was Bridgewater? Why should we do this? And what's the benefits of it? And the benefits, we won't really know, quantify the changes that were made, what helps the agency, because we did a pretty good job before. I'll give you an example of the use of force policy. Our use of force policy says you have to do any type of force, the officer has to do a report. Then it has to be reviewed by the sergeant. And then every year, all those reports have to go to the lieutenant for a complete review, and then to me. So we did a lot of those things. We didn't do them on the timelines we should have been doing. With accreditation really helped us understand that we have to have them in a certain time. And how this helps us is like there's going to be incidents, unfortunately, that we're going to get a lawsuit. But when you have a use of force lawsuits, they really want at that point, they want to look back at all your use of forces for as many years you have. Prior to probably 2010, we didn't do that. So now we can say, okay, this incident, the use of force we can sue, but the last 10, 12, 14, we have them for them to see. We have them how the officer did the report, the sergeant reviewed it, lieutenant reviewed them all. So it shows the process that we're not negligent in what we do. Mistakes can happen, incidents can happen, but overall, you'll see that the first 100 force policy use of force reports, and when you have one incident where there's an issue. So I guess the lawsuit wouldn't be as grave as it would be, we show negligence that we haven't been looking at this over the last 10 years. Like I said, generally there's changes for accreditation, policy updates, minor facility improvements, but the standards basically focus on agency authority, jurisdiction, use of force, selection process, like we just went through. We have to follow a certain selection process for me to select but for me to recommend to the board. They have to go through a selection process. It talks about internal affairs, it talks about discipline, it talks about training. So it holds us to certain standards that we have to keep up on, and all of those things helps the town in like I said, high liability, high risk areas. And when we do the right thing in these high liability, high risk areas, hopefully and collectively, our lawsuits or suits against the town will be less.
And God forbid we did get sued, the judgments would be a lot less thrown out because we're following these standards. So I mean, the big, like I said, big high liability issues, you know, that's what we're really keyed on, and that's what's really the biggest part to the community and to the town of West Bridgewater, is we're trying to keep the liability as low as possible in a department that, as you can see, that's going on all around the world, is very high liability, many losses, cases, hopefully diminish any of those lawsuits, or actually stop them from happening, because a lot of times lawyers go fishing, I say, and ask for different things, and when they see that you've been doing it correctly, what have you, you may not get that attorney just to try to do a lawsuit to get a small settlement with their insurance company or our insurance company with the town. They see that, you know, that we have our act together, and they may go away.
Well, Vic,
Yeah.
am I on? I don't know if I'm on mute still or not.
Yeah, you are.
Oh, you can hear me okay? Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we wanted to recognize everything you've done, your leadership efforts, Lieutenant Nixon's efforts, and your whole team's efforts to always be best in class. So what we have for you is a proclamation from the board to you and your team. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read it to you. So, it is a proclamation of the Board of Selectmen, West Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Whereas on June 4th, 2020, the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission voted to award accreditation to the West Bridgewater Police Department. And whereas achieving full accreditation shows that the West Bridgewater Police Department is in line with the highest possible standards of policing and are delivering the highest level of services to the community. And whereas the West Bridgewater Police Department is an exemplary police force, and the residents and business owners of West Bridgewater can have confidence in their police department, knowing that it has opened itself up to external review, and the results were extraordinary. And whereas this award symbolizes a significant professional accomplishment with the West Bridgewater Police Department securing its place as one of the most professional policing agencies in New England. This is just so true of you and your department. Therefore be it resolved, we, the Board of Selectmen of the town of West Bridgewater, do hereby honor and commend Chief Flaherty, Lieutenant Nixon, and the West Bridgewater Police Department as a whole in attaining state accreditation, and further, acknowledging their exemplary commitment to nationally recognized standards of police professionalism in service to their community. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the great seal of the town of West Bridgewater to be affixed this 8th day of July 2020. The Board of Selectmen, Denise Reyes, Chairman, Anthony J. Kinahan, Vice Chairman, and Meredith L. Anderson, Clerk.
I appreciate that. I'm glad that we put in an entire department because that's what it is. And like I said, just to be short and sweet with the rest of this, basically, what we did is effectively risk management. We're trying to lower the risk and reduce loss, and liability. Plus, it makes a standard and everybody knows what's expected, and all the way around, that's just what.
Well, you're doing an incredible job, and we as a board and the community all appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vic, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything to add?
No.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying congratulations as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add everything that you said in the proclamation is so true. I have said for some time, I think that we honestly have, if not the best chief, one of the best chiefs in Massachusetts. He provides great leadership. He allows people to grow and develop. He allowed the lieutenant to do the entire work, grow the department, lead the department, and the department responded. And it was just an example of his leadership, allowing the entire department to use this as really not just to be developed within, but to also put them in the future to be ahead of other departments. And let's face it, over the last handful of months, police departments have really become under a microscope. And the chief started this years ago because he recognized the importance of this. So again, I just want to commend to him, the lieutenant, and the entire team. You've just done a great job in going back to the hires that you made. When he became chief, he started a robust hiring process, which again, to his point about risk management, gives us a much better opportunity long-term to have great police officers operating in a great town. So again, Chief, I want to say thank you because I work with you every day. And although all the words they said here are true, I get to see it every day. And again, I just want to say thank you as well.
I appreciate it. I would like to say that my job, you know, being a job here to put people in the right spots, right positions to succeed, and they get to also grow. And because we're all not going to be here forever, so my job is to make sure we hire the best, brightest. We do promote the best, brightest. And I'd like to thank the board because the board has never gone against my recommendations because I think you believe and I hope you understand that I only will bring forward who I feel is the best and the brightest ready for that position on that day. There's a lot of good people here. They're all at one point will have an opportunity to be promoted. Some are ready more than others, but they're all being prepared to step into the new roles because there will be new roles in the future. And like I said, I thank the board and David for trusting me when I give a recommendation that is in the best interest of Thomas Bridgewater.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're ready to move on now to ratify the police union MOU, the Memo of Understanding. David?
So we've entered into negotiations. The police chief, along with our HR director, Linda Torres, took the lead role. I'm sorry. I want to make sure they could hear this. We entered into police union negotiations. The contract was up on June 30th. The police chief, along with the HR director, was the lead negotiators on this. I led from behind the scenes, if you will. As a result, we negotiated a new MOU, which would be a 2% increase this year, 0% the following year, 2% in year 3. The thought process is that because of the lack of revenue we anticipate over the next year due to COVID-19, is that we've asked everybody in town to take a 0, and the police union should be commended because they fully understood the situation and they agreed to take the 0. There are no other changes to the contract. As a result, we went into executive session with the board a few weeks ago, and the board at that point had agreed to this. The union in the meantime has met and ratified it. And so in open session per the open meeting law, I am asking the Board of Selectmen to ratify it in open session as well.
So I think we just need to put an emphasis on the fact that our police department agreed to take a 0% increase because they recognize the hardship that we're going to experience as a town, or at least expected to experience even longer due to the effects of COVID-19. And the financial impacts at both the federal, state level, and more so, which will affect us greatly, is how it affects our residents, who some are unemployed. And while there is talk right now that you're collecting unemployment and getting an extra $600 or $900 a week or whatever it is, but that doesn't last a lifetime. and eventually they'll need to go back to work. And looming over our heads is potentially another bout of COVID-19 in the fall. So I highly commend you and your team for being considerate of our town and agreeing to do this. So at this point, I would ask for a motion to ratify the MOU.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chief, thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye. Bye.
Excuse me, allergies. Okay, we're moving on to approving Gloria Hopkins vacation carryover request.
Yep, so before you, I have, per the contract, is that I authorized it and signed it, asking for the Board of Selectmen to ratify. Please keep in mind, and I will ask a vote for the following, is that although there is a request for 8 days, the contract only allows for 5 days to be carried over. So you will see that I've amended it to 5, and as a result, I would ask the Board of Selectmen to take a vote approving 5 days of vacation rollover.
I'll make a motion to approve 5 days of vacation rollover for Gloria Hopkins.
Is there a second?
That 5 days is the maximum.
That is correct.
Second.
Any further discussion or questions?
Nope.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next on the agenda is G, and this is a discussion and possible vote on naming the Board of Selectmen room. What I'd like to ask is that in recognition of Eldon's 39 years of service and dedication to the town, that we name this room the Eldon F. Moreira Selectmen's office, or room, or some variation thereof. I don't know what you have for ideas, but some variation of that. So if you have any suggestions, what do you think?
I think that's a great idea for the number of years, not 39 years, I think, as selectman. I mean, he did a great job for West Bridgewater, and I'm entirely in agreement. I'm looking at the door, and right now it says Board of Selectmen Meeting Room. So maybe the Eldon F. Moreira is Board of Selectmen Meeting Room, or just leave it Meeting Room?
That sounds good. Meredith?
Yeah, no, I think this is a fantastic idea. And Eldon gave to the town for so many years, and we should all be grateful and thankful. Would he like it better to leave Board of Selectmen in the name of the room? Or is it too much of a mouthful and we say the Eldon F. Moreira Meeting Room? No, he might actually like
Like,
Selectmen in there.
You'd like Board of Selectmen?
Maybe get rid of Board of, keep Selectmen's.
The Ellen F. Moreira Selectmen's Meeting Room?
I don't know.
Oh, I like that.
I like that. I like that. So,
Sure.
do you want to
Can I
make
make a motion?
Please.
That we will name it the Eldon F. Moreira Selectmen's Meeting Room.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, this is our first initial recognition for Eldon, and hopefully once COVID-19 slows down a bit or become a little freer, we'll be able to do something more and have
Yeah.
him honor us with his presence. And
Yeah, maybe an unveiling type of thing.
exactly, yeah, something like that would be really nice. But right now, we'll continue to honor the guidance we have with COVID-19. So would it be possible to send Eldon a letter, David, at least letting him know this is the beginning of recognizing his 39 years of service?
Absolutely.
That we're very grateful. So I'd like to make a motion to send Eldon a letter from the board
Second.
informing him. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next on the minutes is, next on the agenda, I'm sorry, is to approve the minutes of June 3rd, 2020. At that particular point, it was just Anthony and I on the board, so we would be the only two voting on that.
Yep, so moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, also, accepting the minutes of June 17th, 2020 for review. It was just you and I on the board at that point, so. We would be
It wasn't
the-
for June 29th.
No, I'm just
Right.
doing June
Oh, just-
17th, I'm
okay.
sorry, did I say the 29th? I meant
Okay.
the 17th.
Motion to accept for the minutes of June 17th.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now on to accept the minutes of June 29th for review. We are all three qualified to vote on them. So is there a motion to approve those minutes for review?
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes for review.
Is there a
dated
second?
June 29th.
Thank you. Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now we will move on to communications and reports from boards, commissions, and town officials. And no one is communicating. I don't think we have anything. Do we, David? From any of the other boards or commissions? Okay. Correspondence from the public to determine a course of action. I don't believe we've received any communications. Public comment period, well, that's not going to happen either, so we'll move on to the town administrator's report.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Denise. First, I just want to say, now that it's my opportunity to say it, congratulations. Welcome on board.
Thank you.
As you know, the last 3.5 months is that we have always provided COVID-19 update. So I am proud to say for the first time since we started doing this that we have 0 positive cases in the town of West Bridgewater. We have had a total of 73 throughout the entire 3.5 months. And at this point, it's 0. So that's a pretty good milestone. The cases keep on trending down in Massachusetts. They obviously have trended down in the town as well. However, it is unfortunate, 40 states at this point are actually trending up. So although we're doing a pretty good job in the state of Massachusetts, and all of us are tired of wearing masks and hear about social distancing and all that, many other states haven't done that. And I think that they're unfortunately seeing cases increase as a result. Phase 3 of the governor's plan began on July 6th and added items such as museums and gyms to now be able to open with certain percentages, such as 40%, to allow them to, for capacity. So we're moving in the right direction. I will tell you that every single Tuesday since this has begun, I have a Zoom conference call with the Lieutenant Governor, and she has other members of her staff, and they've made quite clear that step 4, which is the next step 4, which is supposed to be the new normal, probably is not going to occur for some time. Even though we are doing a good job of the cases going down, great news that the deaths are going down. This is not over. There is no vaccine. We are still going to be doing this for a lengthy period of time. And unfortunately, may have to even revert at some time in the future if we have a resurgence. But at this point, we're in step 3, or phase 3, and we're all moving in the right direction. As part of that, DESE, which is the Department of Education and Secondary Education for the state of Massachusetts, has released new guidelines. They are in hope, are asking for guidelines from school superintendents. They all have to turn them in by the first week of August. Their hope is that they want to see 3 plans. The first plan is that how you would do in-person teaching safely. 2, how would you do it as a hybrid? And 3, if we had to close the schools down, how would you continue to teach everybody remotely? So they are working on those plans. I met with the new superintendent this past week, Mark Bodwell. They're in the process of devising those plans. Obviously, we're hoping that everybody will be able to do in person, but there will be, and probably potentially will be, parents out there that for whatever reason do not want their children to go into school, so they'll be given the option to do remote depending on what guidelines they come up with and are approved by the state of Massachusetts. And unfortunately, sooner or later, somebody may get tested positive. And then that's going to create a change in the school. So that's why we have to make sure we have a hybrid capability at that point, that some people may be able to do a remote and some people will do it in person. And DESE has also asked for guidelines that we may actually have a separate part of the school set up for just people who have tested positive. So that way they could still do in person, but that they would only be interacting with other people who have tested positive. None has come to fruition at this point. They are still working on it. The school committee will have to take a vote on it. It will go to the state. The state then is going to compile all of them and either allow each district to do it individually, or based on feedback, determining best practices, will then come out and reissue guidelines for every single school district to abide by. Obviously, there's a lot of impacts. Transportation, for example. At one time, we know the state considered having sessions in the morning and sessions in the afternoon. But now what you're doing is you're doubling up on transportation, and therefore you're doubling up on transportation costs. You're putting a lot of pressure then on parents who maybe not have the flexibility to be able to work in the morning or during the afternoon hours, for example. So it's not that simple. It's a very complex problem, and obviously we have an obligation to make sure that every single child gets a first-rate education. So they're wrestling with it. Mark will continue putting together what he thinks is best guidelines for it to the state, and obviously as we go through that process, I'll report back to the board as well.
David, has the state issued any indication as to when daycares will be open?
No, but I will tell you, it's a great question. This past Tuesday, the Lieutenant Governor actually addressed that. They are actively working on that issue because they recognize daycare centers being closed has a direct impact as to what we can do with schools. And most parents, as you alluded to earlier, maybe they're getting the additional monies through the unemployment, but sooner or later it dries up. And people have to have the ability to be able to go to work, make an income, support their families, but also make sure that their children are safe. So it's a big wrestling match, and there's no doubt that that is an impact, making sure that we can have children or childcare. They recognize it. I know they're working on it. That was specifically addressed in this past week's meeting.
Is that part of phase 4 or not even close yet?
I think it's actually supposed to be part of phase 3, and they're still working through the guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. On a local level, we have now reopened Town Hall officially yesterday to all employees. So when I say we reopened Town Hall, this includes the following departments. It includes the Town Hall, the Fire Department, Police Department, DPW, and the Water Departments. So the Fire Department and the Police Department obviously were always up and running because they have to. They're essential personnel. But they did have secretaries in each department. They were working from home. And so at this point now, as of yesterday, they were required to report to work. Same thing in the Water Department. In the DPW Department, is that those laborers and managers have always been reporting to work, is that their clerical staff now, as of yesterday, reported to work. I thought it was important that we didn't just all of a sudden have them come back to work and then they look up and there's a member of the public. What we have done in the meantime is that we've put plexiglass in place, and we have asked and solicited feedback from all employees. And we have said, what would we have to do to make you feel safer? Some people, there was minimal, other people requested more. So we've spent the last couple of weeks readying the town hall to make sure that those employees are as safe as possible. So we have done that. Today, yesterday when they came back, there was a couple of employees who said, you know what, I'd like to do even a little bit more. That's okay. We're going to put those proper protocols in place. We've also put up signs throughout the town hall to remind people of 6-foot distances and also the fact that they have to wear masks. In the meantime, we have procured as much sanitation materials as we can. Think wipes, gloves, masks, and spray. The Board of Health has it. There's a process in place that as people need it, is that they can check it out so we can replenish it as need be. So we think that we've done all the protocols that we can to keep people as safe as possible. But people have been home for 3 months. And just to all of a sudden go to work, it's different. So I want to make sure that we had a true acclimation period. So for this entire week, employees have been reporting to work. Tomorrow I have a follow-up meeting with all employees throughout the entire town hall to say, how's it going? Is there something we missed? Is there something that we can add, change, amend, whatever the case might be? And within reason, we'll do those things. And then on Monday of next week is that we will then open up the town hall back to the public. So we've given our employees a full week to get reacclimated, and then next week we'll open up to the public.
How do you plan to control the amount of the public coming into the building? Do you have any concerns that people will suddenly be running down here to get that dog permit or building permit or dog license, rather, renew their dog license? Because I know there's quite a few that are outstanding.
Yep, so everybody's still going to have to stay 6 feet apart. They're still going to have to wear a mask. Obviously, if they have a medical condition, there's not much we can do about it. But I think as we saw at town meeting, 99% of the people complied. So I think that people would do the same. They have to stay 6 feet apart, so if they're in the building, if they have to queue to all the way outside or down the hallway, that's what they'll have to do. We have locked all the doors to the offices. Before, you used to be able to just walk into the town accountant's office at any time. Can't do that anymore. So what we did is we changed the plexiglass, we created slots, so that way we can talk through that. So again, we can keep the residents safe, and we can keep the employees safe, and still be able to conduct business. So we are hoping that by making sure that everybody is pushed just to the common areas, and that people will be respectful. We are at Market Basket. We are at Lowe's. Everybody goes up to check out, they stand 6 feet apart. I think people are pretty in tune to that right now. So I would anticipate they would do the same. Obviously, if somebody is not doing the right thing, we'll have to talk to them. But I think we saw at town meeting, we see in private industry, we see people are pretty much are in tune. I hope that they'll respect those items. As opposed to capacity, the town hall or municipal government is considered an essential service. So we don't have to worry about, oh, we can only have 2 people here or 4 people there or whatever the case is. But we have to be respectful, and we're going to make every attempt to do so.
Thank you.
The Council on Aging has still not been opened. They're obviously the most vulnerable population, and we can't ask 20, 30, 50 people to come in and do lunches. So at this point, the Council on Aging has not been opened. That'll be a challenging department to reopen for obvious reasons. So I'll keep the board up to date on that. The library is still open for curbside pickup only.
When do you see that opening?
Don't know. Part of the issue from the DPH guidelines right now is not necessarily making sure that we only have 20 people in the library. That's easy to control, for example. What is not easy to control is when people touch things. Technically, as they touch a book, it's supposed to be sanitized. So I'm walking through the library as a patron. I go in, I pull a book out of a shelf, I look at it, I'm like, oops, wrong one, I stick it back. I go down, open up another one, not that one. Someone would have to walk behind me
And watch
to watch me.
That's not
And
feasible.
it's not feasible at this point, and DPH recognizes that. So they have not issued guidelines to open libraries. That's why every library at this point is curbside. I am told that one library is going to push the envelope, I don't know if that's true, I've not verified it, to try to begin the opening process. Yeah, Plainville, I believe. Yeah, so, but again, in order to do that, they are literally gonna have to have somebody walk behind them and sanitize every single periodical that they touch to protect the next person that comes in. I think that's asking a little bit too much. So I'm gonna continue following the DPH guidelines. We'll allow curbside pickup. We'll see how long that goes. I'm also asked the library director for data. I wanna know how many people are utilizing it. I don't want to see the library close. But obviously, if we only have one person a week using it for 4 or 6 months, we're gonna have to look at that. We wanna provide the service, but are people utilizing the service? So we'll look at the data, and I'm sure the data, our library has always been extremely well used, and so I anticipate that we're gonna see that our library, our curbside pickup is probably gonna continue to trend up as people become more and more aware that it's open.
Can I ask about the town hall? Is there a contingency plan if somebody contracts it or is concerned that they've been exposed to the virus?
Yep, so we have already put out, I think there's a memo that we've put out as well. If somebody contracts coronavirus, then they are able to quarantine, and under this federal guideline, we are required to pay them 2/3 of their salary with a maximum amount. So they wouldn't have to use sick time unless they want to, they wouldn't have to use vacation time. And if somebody is concerned that they have been exposed, then we would talk to them. But I'm not going to allow somebody to say, hey, I went to Market Basket, somebody coughed, and I'm gonna stay at home and just get paid. You know, that's just not right, because all of us went into that on a daily basis. But I am gonna follow the federal guidelines at this point, that if somebody is either one, they have become sick from it or exposed, because they may not be sick, they may be asymptomatic but be exposed, or two, if they are caring for somebody in their household who has been exposed, then I will follow the federal guidelines at that point.
And I think the guideline, I think it's
Or
still
rule
a
one.
mandate that the insurance companies cover the test in full. There's no
That's correct.
copay or deductible. So if anyone is in great fear of having been exposed or knows they were exposed, it would be reasonable for them to go out and have tests done. Find a testing facility and have it done.
Yeah, I mean, look, if somebody says, I tested positive, then we're going to switch to the federal law, allow them to do what they have to do, which is to stay at home and pay them. We've already had, we've had one person take advantage of this, not necessarily from being exposed, but there is a second provision of FMLA that's been expanded, that if you don't have childcare and you need to be able to take care of a child, that they're able to take up to 12 weeks, again, with minimum payout, but they do get paid for that period of time. We had an employee in town who was taking advantage of that program. They filled out the forms and we have paid them.
So how much have they paid?
That one's, I don't recall what that one is. The first one is 2/3, the other one might be $200 a week or 2/3. There's a minimum and a maximum,
Okay.
and so we just plug in the formula and we follow it along.
And that's 12 weeks?
Yeah,
pay?
12
Up
weeks.
to 12
Up to
weeks?
12 weeks.
Okay.
And the last thing that I also want to mention is that DPH guidelines is that whenever you do open your buildings, is that they require, to the best of our ability, to capture everybody that comes into the building through a visitor's log. So that way when somebody comes to get a license, for example, we're going to capture their name. And therefore, if at a future date somebody does contract it, DPH then can begin the contract tracing process. Now, it's a First Amendment right. I can't force somebody to give me their name, but if somebody's buying a license and they give me a check, I'm going to know. And very few people pay cash. So for the most part, we're going to be able to capture that information. And I think also most people are going to be forthcoming. We're not going to be asking date of birth or social security numbers. All it's going to be is Mary Anderson, South Elm Street. And that way we know, and at a later date, if they have to do contact tracing, they'll be able to do so. So I honestly believe we've spent a lot of time. It wasn't just me. It was also the emergency management team, which is made up of the two chiefs, the HR director, and the health inspector. And so we have spent a lot of time on this over the last handful of weeks. We've solicited feedback. We think that we've made an earnest attempt to really keep everybody as safe as possible. But sooner or later, we've all got to go back to work. I mean, you could go to a restaurant now. You can now go to a museum. It was time for us to say we need to come to work and provide the services that our residents are depending on us.
Well, I walked around Town Hall and saw the doors, with the plexiglass in them, and some desks have plexiglass hanging from the ceiling around the desk area. It doesn't look pretty, but it is what it is. It's functional. It provides that layer of safety. So.
And that was done upon request.
Right. So we're doing everything we can to accommodate anyone who requests something more, and it's a fair and reasonable request.
And we will continue to do so.
Okay.
Any other questions about COVID? Seeing none, there was one last item that I just want to bring to your attention. It is not on the agenda because under the open meeting law, we have to post 48 hours in advance. The only exception to that is if something comes in that is time pressing, that I legitimately receive within the 48 hours. And today at noon, I received an email, as did all three of you, from State Senator Timilty. And as you saw, he said we have to give him the answer by noon tomorrow. So, there's nothing, I didn't know that email was going to come through, and we only have 24 hours. So, in that email, what he is stating is that there is a chance that there is going to be a transportation bond bill. Now, I say that there's a chance because we all know the state does not have money. They are going to have a $6 to $8 billion shortfall. So it may very well be that they go through the process, decide not to vote on one, or they vote on one, authorize it, they have to send it to the governor, but in the state of Massachusetts, under the state of Massachusetts Constitution, only the governor can ultimately sign off on the bond. So if they decide not to issue it from the governor's office, even if there's an authorization from the legislature, then the state does not bond any more additional ones. So with that said, I reached out, I had a conversation with the office today, and so I've placed before you what we did last year as part of our budget priorities, which included funding for transportation projects. At that point, there was East Street, East Center Street traffic signal. Proud to say that's done, so I don't think we can put that on. But the Matfield Street Route 28 traffic signal had always been the #1 priority of the Board of Selectmen in the past. And I still believe should be. And the only reason, Mary, that we are not doing that and we're doing the one down on Howard Street in 106 is because we got a gift from the state. The state...
That's the complete streets.
Exactly. So when they funded $300,000, $287,000, but there was a time limit, we had to shift priorities and do that late instead. So we're doing that now. But the board has always had the priority of Matfield Street. So I didn't want to just make a decision on behalf of the town, so I want to bring it to you. So my recommendation is that we put Matfield Street Route 28 traffic signal as our #1 priority, that we would include a priority for sidewalks, that even though we have complete streets and we can still get funding from there, if we can get additional monies, we should take it. You know, so my recommendation is that we would make those two our priorities, and then I will add anything else that you think as well.
How much will we put down for sidewalks? 300,000?
Sure, whatever number you would like. That was confirmed when I spoke to the office earlier.
Yeah, no, I'm all for sidewalks. That's all I
Okay.
keep hearing about.
Right. Yeah, I would say 300.
And are you in agreement on the Matfield Street Route 28 traffic signal as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that should be
Yes.
first, if they're,
Number
I don't know
one.
if these are prioritized, but.
I will, because we have unfortunately not received the funding in the past, but if we do, I am sure it's not all or nothing. They may pick and choose, so I think it would be important for us to rank them in priority.
How soon do you think we'll know?
So that question was posed, and that's why they plan on voting on this on Friday in the Senate. If there are differences between the House and the Senate, which there probably will be, because quite frankly, the House has already voted on this, and our state rep had not contacted me. So I didn't have an opportunity to provide her or bring to you as to what, I didn't know that it was even being voted on. So, but there are always going to be differences. There will be a consensus committee that is formed. That takes time, could take weeks, it could take a couple of months, and then it'll go to the governor, and then it's up to the governor as to how long he, so I'm saying he gets Governor Baker, how long he would then decide to bond it at that point. So I don't know, it could be a couple of months or it could be much longer.
So what do we have in the works so far for Matfield Street and Route 28? Did we have funds for engineering on that project?
We do not. We originally, this year, we were going to put more money into an engineering fund, so that way we could be nimble during the year. We could say, okay, let's do some engineering, but we didn't have the money. Once everything changed, we prioritized, and unfortunately, that was going to be part of our capital budget process, and we just nixed it.
So
We should just go with those two.
that's what I was thinking too. You can take off the funding for study, because prior to COVID-19, for a study into 40Bs, because prior to COVID-19, we talked about moving forward with a housing plan and encompassing, I think the zoning board that would fall within the responsibilities of the zoning board, and I think the planning board, and I think it sort of died off with everything that was happening. So are we at this point ready to circle back to the planning board and talk about a potential housing plan so that we can be in front of the 40B versus always reactive?
So, the planning board did receive the memo. I have spoken to the chairman of the planning board in the past. Yes, it predated COVID-19. There was not a lot of appetite from the planning board to actually initiate a comprehensive housing plan review. However, you may recall that I had an opportunity because OCPC had a grant program available to do something in reference to a housing plan. And I applied for it and it was awarded. So OCPC is a little bit behind the 8 ball because of everything going on, but once everything starts running, they are then going to provide some analysis for us on 40B in housing, right? Because we had discussed it.
Right.
So they'll provide that analysis, and then once we receive that report, then I think that we can then sit with the planning board and any other partners at that point and say, okay, what do we want to do and how do we want to do it? Because we don't know what that's going to say yet.
Thanks for the refresher. That
No,
seems
that's
like
okay.
it was so long
Yeah,
ago. I didn't remember where we left off.
There's maybe the longest 4 months ever, right?
Yeah, sure is. Okay, does anyone have any further I'm sorry?
Yes, I would ask just to take a motion in reference to if Matfield Street, Route 28 is your number 1 priority and the $300,000 for sidewalk is your number 2. If you can take a motion, I'll make sure a memo goes to the senator tomorrow.
So,
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. That's my report.
Okay, no one has anything else? I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.